Welcome back. Let's talk about in this second segment of the program about one of the major social issues that Pakistani society is facing at large, and this is the issue of child marriages in Pakistan. UNICEF has shared some official statistics according to which 21% of Pakistani girls are married before reaching the age of 18. 3% of the girls are married before reaching the age of 15. And this makes Pakistan a country with sixth highest number of girls getting married before the age of 18. What happens as a consequence is an entire vicious circle of miseries and crisis. A girl child who is not educated enough, who is not mature enough, cannot be provided with enough opportunities. And this has consequences on the society, on the economy, and on the opportunities that could have been extended to these girl children. More importantly, most of these issues are deeply graved or deeply rooted in the very fabric of the rural society, which normally even give these girls away as a penalty to the aggrieved family in order to settle disputes. To talk about this very pertinent issue in Pakistan, I have today invited Dr. Sana Durvesh. Dr. Sana Durvesh, who is joining me from Lahore on Skype, is a leading expert in primary health program management with a focus on reproductive rights, child marriage prevention, and gender sensitive health. Dr. Sana Durvesh, I welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for choosing this very important topic.
Now, this was a perspective that I have as a layman because I'm not an expert on these social issues. But as an expert on the subject, why are you concerned about child marriages being one of the major social issues in the country? Why do you think it to be a major social issue for Pakistan?
So, like you said, Pakistan is number six when contributing to child marriages in the world. We are the fifth most populous country in the world. So that means we are a large population. And if 20% of our girls are married before the age of 18, it means that we are making families that are being raised by young people, very young people who are not prepared to take that role. That again means that they will not be planning their life, someone else will be doing that for them. Which brings us to the fact that, we see a lot of health issues, health crises in Pakistan, education crisis in Pakistan. We see a lot of development issues in Pakistan. We are lagging behind in most of our sustainable development goals. And when we look at the root causes of all these lackings in the development, we see that it is because our young people were not prepared to take on the role that they were given, and that is resulting in very large families that are not in getting enough mental health, physical health, social health to carry on with their life. That puts a lot of burden on the health system, education system, and the government system. And we do have disease ministries. We have all sorts of programs that responds to crisis, but we're not planning the well-being of our nation. And that is why one of the key issues that have to be tackled by any coming government or any other development program has to be a focus on protection of children from early marriages.
Dr. Sana, as we have discussed earlier, it is 21 out of 100 girls that are married before the age of 18. That makes it 1 out of 5. Now, 1 out of 5 is a very high ratio. And this apparently doesn't seem to be a phenomena centered around some areas of the country. So, do you have any statistics to identify what are the hotbed areas for this problem? This problem must be prevalent more in some areas, and some areas might not see the intensity of it.
You're right. See, when we are very aware that rural areas and people living under the poverty line sometimes have no other choice than to marry off their young girls, because otherwise the girls are not contributing in the economy of the family, or if we look at the larger picture in the country, they're being denied the right to access education or an employment. So the only thing that is left with the family is to have them married. Now, it is very common in the rural areas. Ironically, when the Sindh has the largest, has the strongest legislation, the largest contribution in early child marriages is coming from Sindh and rural areas of Sindh. So we have to look at those pockets, the rural areas of Sindh that are contributing. Number two is Punjab, and then and in areas where poverty and access to employment and life opportunities is less. So those are the fixed areas. We can go to district wise data. It is all available, but the problem actually really is that not all births are registered in Pakistan. In fact, not registering births is a very huge issue. So whatever statistics we get is mostly through surveys like DHS, etc., which are also very on a sample base. Child marriages are not reported because it is taken as an internal matter. So unless state takes enough proactive measures to know the burden of the problem and to address them, because it can also happen in urban areas, and I've seen that happening when I was in Karachi. It was very common in urban and peri-urban areas. So we have to have proper data being reported to take actions. But for now, I think whatever is available, the district-wise data is available on child marriages. For example, Tharparkar in Sindh is a hotbed. So that kind of data will help us design programs which are very focused and targeted on communities. The problem is we do have some very strong legislations, for example, in Sindh, but people do not know of them. Children do not know, parents do not know, and communities do not know. So legislation and working with communities in these targeted populations is going to be very important.
And also the lack of law enforcement must be one of the major reasons, because as Sindh has already made a legislation, you have already pointed it out, that in Sindh officially a marriage cannot take place if the child is not, if the girl is not more than, or the boy is not more than 18 years of age. And if still is Sindh is number one on your list, this means there is a problem with law enforcement mechanism as well. Why do you think law enforcement has not been able to enforce the writ?
I do give communities and society a chance after legislation is made. There has to be a very focused attention on making the public aware of the existence of such a legislation. So I think I would give them, the communities and our law enforcement agencies, a benefit of doubt that they have not yet been educated enough. And so I would say we have to focus on communities' education and awareness, including of the children, that they have the certain rights that they can exercise, of the parents, of community leaders, and then also coming on to our law enforcement agencies, our police force, etc. We do have child protection committees now in certain districts which are doing well. I was in Hyderabad and there were cases being responded to and stopped at the right time. But it is literally in Karachi and Hyderabad, for example, if you talk about Sindh, but we have to go into further districts and educate more and have these protection mechanisms under one roof, where reporting is made easier for communities, where if there's a punishment that has to happen, that has to be also made easier. What we also see, there are gaps in laws. For example, in Sindh it's 18 years, but in Punjab it's 16 years for both the genders. But in other areas there is an age gap. For girls it's 16 and for boys it's 18. So that discrimination has to go away. Reporting has to be made easier, and if there has to be a consequence, that consequence has to happen. Because if until unless we model the implementation of the law and it is made public, we cannot have enough results from making any legislations.
Dr. Sinha, we are quite close to elections now. Pakistan is about to witness another general elections in February. Do you find this to be in the mainstream discourse of the political parties that are about to contend election and going to ask people for their all-out support? And if not, why do you believe this is missing from the horizon?
Yeah, so not really. Right now, all the politics is around, you're talking about economy and you're talking about foreign policy, etc., which is great. Those are important issues. But when you're talking about social issues, I find that conversation completely missing, the plans completely missing. And I think one of the reasons for that is there is no understanding of the link between these issues and your economy and social security. For example, with such a huge young population which is facing challenges of gender inequalities, girls being married earlier, it is affecting girls disproportionately. So you are adding to the hunger, to the crime, to the law and order, because even young boys cannot take the responsibility of the family. So we are not able to connect the dots between these social issues and the social security issues that will arise, and then general security issues that will arise, and the economy. So that kind of education and of the politicians is also very important. A very good example was set when one of the former chief justices took a suo motu on family planning. That kind of awareness and that kind of proactivity is needed in all social issues, particularly when it comes to protecting our children. Because really, when we say we are getting a child married, we are outrightly, with a lot of audacity, denying the children the right to education, to play, to stay with security, to stay in, to contribute to development, etc. So these are not minor issues. These are going to become huge economic issues in future. And that kind of understanding is currently lacking.
My last question, Dr. Sana. We have so far spoken about the laws being fluid and fragile, about the society not capable of understanding the consequences or gravity of the situation, about the polity that widely remains unsensitized or about this issue, and also about the lack of attention of the administrative apparatus of the state being unable to enforce the laws that have already been made, while the laws that have been made are not sufficient. Where ideally should we be starting it from? What can be the first step for any upcoming political party that is going to take a lead in implementing a better policy for favorable for the girls? Where do you think should be the first point? The
I
first
think,
step, I
like,
mean.
since we should have more progressive laws in other provinces, we should raise the age of marriage to at least 18. I would have loved to set 21, but 18. But that would require, and there is a lot of misunderstanding. The federal Sharia code says there is no harm in, there is nothing un-Islamic about having set an age of marriage. So I think all the provinces should be on one page, that the age of marriage for both boys and girls should be 18, not less than 18. And then we have to also legislate in favor of pre-marriage counseling of couples, so that they're equipped when planning a family and running a family. They are going to make the whole fabric of the society and take us forward. So legislation is one, and then and on implementation side, large scale education programs, why can't we make it a part of curriculum, to be for children to be aware of their rights, and for out of school children to be made aware of their rights, and for parents to know their rights. So a large scale state sponsored behavior change communication campaigns targeted in areas where the problem is really rampant, not going all firing cylinders, but very targeted approach. And then for also making sure that whoever is denying the rights and not working with the legislation that is already done faces consequences. We cannot take laws lightly. We are signatories to international law. We have our local laws. We cannot make fun of them like that. To have the laws and not hold people accountable. So that has to be really made sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Sana Durvesh, for being guest in our show.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was Dr. Sana Durvesh, and if I conclude whatever she has said in this 15 or 18 minutes of conversation, the first step is the implementation of the laws that have already been made, while there is a need of making more laws that can perhaps bring a harmony or can bring a uniformity across the country in the laws prevalent at the moment. Also, we have to be fully aware of the fact that every child, regardless of his or her gender, needs to be extended equal opportunities. Unless we do not do justice, starting from our homes, the society will never have justice at large. We'll join you next week with another program. And until then, Allah Hafiz.